I mean, you guys have all been talking about him already, so I'm sure you could assume who it is. But the rest of the cast was really amazing.
Picture it, Morocco, the desert heat pressing in, the kind of landscape that makes even the strongest athletes question why they signed up. Cameras roll, boots stomp through gravel, and tempers run just as hot as the midday sun. Special Forces' world's toughest test promised grit, discipline, and stripped-down reality. What no one expected, at least not right away, was just how quickly one name would dominate the whispers in the barracks: Kody Brown. Yes, the same Kody who made his fame and infamy through Sister Wives, the man who once held 4 women under one roof, and then watched it all unravel on national television. Now, he was stepping into a whole new arena, swapping the cul-de-sacs of Flagstaff for the unforgiving drills of military-style training. Insiders whisper that the transition wasn't smooth, not by a long shot. And it wasn't just the climate or the push-ups. It was Kody himself, loud, restless, and allegedly already rubbing castmates the wrong way before the first full challenge even began. Producers had stacked this season's cast with a mix of athletes, reality stars, and personalities designed to clash, but Kody stood out like a sore thumb from the moment boots hit the ground. He wasn't just the oldest on the roster, he was also the one carrying a reputation, a legacy of arguments, confessionals, and that unforgettable knife-in-the-kidneys rant that fans of Sister Wives still quote today.
And these 4 special forces, they want to find that, they want to exploit it, and they want to make you better because of it.
For some, that baggage was entertainment gold. For others, it was a warning sign. And as the group settled into their isolated Moroccan camp, sources allege that Brown's energy didn't exactly gel with the military-style demand for obedience and unity. Remember, this is a man used to leading his own family as though he were the unquestioned authority. So taking orders from drill staff, that's an adjustment no one was sure he could make. But the first clue of trouble didn't come from leaked footage or official promos. No, it slipped out through a side door, almost casually, when castmate Gia Giudice decided to give fans a little taste on her podcast. The daughter of Teresa Giudice, yes, that Teresa, the table-flipping queen of Jersey housewives, Gia painted a picture that had viewers' ears perking up. She insisted the cast was amazing, that she really couldn't name anyone she outright disliked. And then, with a pause and a smile, she said there were definitely a few people who could get under your skin. She didn't drop the name. She didn't have to. Fans online immediately connected the dots, pointing the finger squarely at Kody Brown. After all, who else had already been stirring headlines before the show even premiered? This was no random slip. It was a breadcrumb, and audiences know a trail when they see one. Kanye's wording was diplomatic, but it carried weight. It suggested more than just an off day or a misunderstanding. It hinted at a presence that shifted the entire energy of the group. And when viewers put that together with what they already know of Kody's temper and tendency to dominate conversations, the picture became even sharper. This wasn't just about a man struggling to adjust. It was about a man who may have already triggered the very conflict reality TV thrives on. And if you think Gia's little tease was the only crack in the facade, think again, because she wasn't the only castmate dropping hints that Kody was the odd man out, and that's where things get even messier. Gia didn't have to say his name, because by then, everyone already knew. When she danced around the question on her podcast, fans didn't just hear a vague anecdote, they heard a siren. She described how the cast was surprisingly cohesive, how nearly everyone clicked, and then slipped in that one tiny exception.
You're wearing the same exact thing. You're not allowed makeup. You're not allowed anything that uniquely makes you your own. Like you're stripped down to like just the bare minimum.
There were definitely people who got under your skin, she said, and the tone was all it took. She didn't shout it, she didn't drag it out, but the implication was crystal clear. It was the kind of carefully chosen phrasing that reality stars have mastered over the years, enough to spark gossip without burning a bridge. And yet, within minutes, fan pages lit up with speculation, and the name that kept bubbling up wasn't an athlete, wasn't a model, wasn't even another reality veteran. It was Kody Brown, the same man whose reputation for sharp words and public outbursts followed him from Sister Wives like a shadow that never lets go. Now, in fairness, Gia never once said Kody outright. She didn't accuse him, didn't paint a scene of shouting matches or walkouts. But here's where things got sticky. Her hint dropped almost in lockstep with another name, Brianna Chicken Fry LaPaglia. Brianna had also chimed in her own way about tensions behind the scenes. She claimed she cried, she sobbed, she struggled with one particular castmate. And then came the kicker, her not-so-subtle suggestion that it was the same person everyone else was whispering about. Again, no names, but when you have two separate voices hinting at the same friction, it starts to look less like coincidence and more like a pattern. Insiders claim that what really sparked these rumbles wasn't one explosive fight, but a string of smaller clashes, moments where Kody's tone, his posture, or even his need to control group dynamics rubbed people raw. Remember, this was Morocco, not Flagstaff. There were no familiar couches, no wives or kids, no TLC producers softening the edges. The show was designed to break people down and build them back up. And in that environment, even a single sarcastic comment can feel like a grenade. Add in Kody's history of seeing himself as a leader, and you've got the recipe for sparks in every team exercise. Gia described it as people who could get under your skin, which may sound mild, but in reality TV speak, that's code for someone whose behavior turned the air in the room toxic. Fans immediately seized on the phrasing, posting side-by-sides of Kody's past rants and asking, who else could it be? And while neither Gia nor Brianna ever confirmed it outright, the timing of their remarks made it almost impossible to dismiss the speculation. The picture forming now wasn't of one castmate lightly annoyed at another. It was of multiple cast members, independently hinting that the same man disrupted what was otherwise a surprisingly peaceful group. And if two voices were brave enough to say it on podcasts, you have to wonder what the rest of the cast was holding back. Because if this was just the opening act, what happens when the cameras catch the raw footage? And that's when another layer of the story began to emerge, one that made Kody look even more out of step. When Brianna LaPaglia added her piece to the puzzle, the whispers around Kody grew louder. Brianna, known online as Chicken Fry, isn't exactly a wallflower herself. She's made a career out of being candid, playful, and sometimes brutally honest. So when she took to social media and admitted she cried, "I sobbed, lol," fans immediately wondered what had triggered that breakdown. At first, it sounded like a generic tough day moment, the kind of thing anyone might go through on a brutal reality competition. But then came her follow-up. She didn't really get along with a certain castmate. She didn't give the name, but she didn't need to. By that point, Gia had already primed the audience, and viewers started to connect the dots faster than producers could keep up. The speculation went into overdrive. Was it possible that two young women from completely different backgrounds would both hint at trouble with the same man?
Because it was really fascinating to see how strong the opinions were.
Chill out.
No, I'm not here to tell people to chill out.
I am.
Insiders claim that Brianna's subtle shade was directed squarely at Kody, though she stopped short of confirming. What makes her comments sting even more is the context. Special Forces isn't about alliances and staged confessionals, it's about group suffering. Cast members are deprived of sleep, cut off from their phones, and pushed through exhausting drills. If someone is clashing under those conditions, it doesn't just ruffle feathers, it makes life unbearable for the whole group. And sources allege that this is exactly what happened when Kody tried to insert himself as a sort of leader figure in team tasks. In an environment where hierarchy is already enforced by the drill staff, that kind of behavior can create instant friction. Think about it. Kody spent over a decade on Sister Wives building an identity as the head of a household, a man who expected to be deferred to. He called himself a leader, he delivered fiery speeches to his wives, and he often positioned his decisions as final. But Morocco was not Flagstaff. On this show, no one cares about his past as a polygamist or his years in front of TLC cameras. He was just another recruit in a dusty uniform. And that stripping away of authority allegedly exposed some habits he couldn't turn off. Where others were adjusting and following orders, Kody was, as one rumor has it, questioning directives and talking back. And this is where Brianna's "I sobbed" comment takes on a new dimension. It wasn't just about a hard workout, it was about the atmosphere in camp, about being trapped with someone who made an already punishing experience feel 10 times heavier. Multiple cast members reportedly got along fine. Gia even said everyone else was amazing. But when more than one voice hints that the same man was the problem, it paints a picture of isolation and not the kind producers built into the format. Fans are now waiting to see if the episodes confirm this rumored tension. Will cameras catch Kody's clashes? Or will editing soften the edges? And if Brianna and Gia both walked away with the same impression, how many more are staying quiet until premiere night? The cliffhanger here is obvious, because the real question is, what exactly set Kody off, and why did it keep happening? And that's where the story takes a sharp turn into the structure of the show itself, and why it's the perfect storm for conflict. On Sister Wives, Kody always had the upper hand. If an argument spiraled in the kitchen, there was always the confessional chair waiting, where he could sit alone, wave his hands, and spin the story in his own favor. TLC's cameras would cut between his monologues and the wives' rebuttals, and the audience was left to decide which version rang truer. But Special Forces is nothing like that. There are no soft-focus confessionals, no private producer interviews, no moments to plead your case with music swelling in the background. The structure of the show is bare bones, orders shouted, drills executed, and raw reactions caught in real time. And according to insiders, that's exactly where Kody allegedly stumbled. think about the format. Contestants are treated like military recruits, stripped of comfort, cut off from their phones, and thrust into punishing conditions where obedience is survival. In that world, no one cares about your past credits, your years on TV, or your reputation as a so-called ladies' man. It doesn't matter if you were once the star of TLC's flagship polygamy experiment. On the Moroccan base, you're just another recruit in a line of uniforms. And for someone like Kody, who has spent decades performing as the center of attention, that kind of anonymity can feel like suffocation. Sources allege that he bristled under the lack of control, that his natural instinct to assert himself clashed head-on with drill staff who don't negotiate, they command. Fans have already drawn parallels between his infamous knife-in-the-kidneys speech on Sister Wives and the alleged outbursts whispered about during filming. That meltdown, which aired to millions, was supposed to be his rawest moment, but in the desert, there was no editing to make it sympathetic. Rumor has it that every time Kody tried to rally or push back, it came across not as leadership but as disruption. Where athletes like Randall Cobb or Johnny Manziel were used to taking orders and executing as part of a team, Kody's background was one of total control over his household, with little accountability when things unraveled. On Special Forces, that dynamic didn't translate, it backfired. And this is where the absence of confessionals really matters. There was no cozy couch for him to look into the lens and say, well, this is why I raised my voice, or I was only trying to motivate them. Instead, what played out was visible to everyone in real time. Castmates weren't hearing two sides. They were watching a man react unfiltered without the polish of TLC editing. And if Gia and Brianna's comments are anything to go by, those reactions weren't winning him allies. It leaves us with a chilling thought. Kody, so used to narrating his own story, may have finally walked into an environment where his words alone couldn't protect him. He was just one voice in a crowded room, and without confessionals, that voice carried a different weight. And if you think that dynamic wasn't going to explode once Gia Giudice entered the same room as Kody, well, that's where the real drama may be hiding, just waiting for premiere night. Now here's where it gets spicy, because if there's one thing reality fans know, it's that Gia Giudice doesn't exactly shy away from conflict. This is the same woman who flipped a dinner table on Real Housewives of New Jersey and turned herself into a Bravo legend. She's battled castmates, stared down betrayals, and even weathered a prison sentence, only to come back swinging. So imagine that fiery personality stepping into the same desert barracks as Kody Brown, the self-styled patriarch of Sister Wives who has built his entire persona on demanding respect. It was combustible from the moment the pair landed in Morocco. Add Gia into the mix, fiercely loyal to her mom and already dropping hints about trouble in camp, and you suddenly have a mother-daughter duo with no patience for unnecessary drama. This season's twist made things even trickier. Contestants weren't just competing alone. Several arrived as pairs, husbands and wives, mother and daughter, people with a built-in bond, Sean Johnson and Andrew East, Jesse James Decker and Eric Decker, and of course, Teresa and Gia. Now, producers claimed each person was evaluated individually, but let's be honest, alliances form naturally when you've got someone in your corner. And if you're Kody, already rubbing people the wrong way, being up against pairs who communicate seamlessly only makes the spotlight on your behavior burn brighter. Sources whisper that this dynamic left him outnumbered. Every time he tried to insert himself or push back, he wasn't just dealing with one critic, he was dealing with two voices echoing off each other, amplifying the tension. For Gia, who's only in her early 20s but has grown up in the glare of Bravo cameras, this wasn't unfamiliar territory. She knows the difference between regular banter and someone who grates on everyone in the room. So when she hinted that certain people got under your skin, it wasn't the voice of inexperience. It was a seasoned reality veteran speaking carefully, knowing exactly how much to reveal and how much to hold back for maximum effect. And when you add Teresa's reputation into the conversation, it's not hard to picture the pair rolling their eyes in sync as Kody tried to flex his authority in a space where no one asked for it. Insiders allege that this pairing became one of the unspoken reasons Kody felt isolated. On Sister Wives, he'd grown used to women deferring, even if reluctantly. Here, the opposite was true. Teresa is not Christine or Janelle, and Gia is not Mary. They weren't bound to him by faith, marriage, or family loyalty. They were competitors, equals, and in many ways his foils. And rumor has it, when Kody felt cornered by their defiance, his volume went up, and his popularity went down. And here's the kicker. If you think Teresa stayed silent while Kody's behavior unfolded, think again. She may not have spoken out yet, but the silence only makes fans more curious about what's hiding in the episodes. Because if Gia's podcast dropped breadcrumbs, imagine what Teresa's unfiltered reactions might look like when the cameras finally roll. And that's where the whispers of fights turn into full-on speculation. Did Kody actually start blow-ups on set? And if so, how did they spiral? The answer might already be baked into the way the cast has been teasing us, and it only gets juicier from here. Fights. It's the word fans latched onto the second Gia's podcast dropped, even though she never actually said it outright. She used softer phrasing, people who got under your skin, but in the world of reality TV, everyone knows that's code. And sure enough, entertainment outlets ran with headlines screaming that Kody started fights on set. Now, let's be careful here. There's no official confirmation from Fox or producers that actual fights happened, but when you line up the hints, Gia's carefully chosen words, Brianna's teary confession about clashing with someone, and the way both stopped short of naming names, it leaves the audience with only one conclusion. The man making waves wasn't an athlete, wasn't a Bravo veteran, wasn't a model. It was Kody Brown, the outsider from Sister Wives. And if you think the term fights means punches thrown or chairs flipped, that's not the picture being painted. This is Special Forces, after all. The show thrives on order and obedience, not chaos. Fights in this context are about heated words, cutting remarks, and tension so thick you can feel it buzzing in the air. Imagine being bone-tired, dirty, stripped of your phone, and suddenly you've got Kody barking back at drill staff or challenging how a task is done. Sources allege that it wasn't just one moment, but a pattern, small clashes that chipped away at group morale until some cast members had simply had enough. Brianna's I cried, I sobbed story hits harder when you frame it this way. She wasn't saying she broke down after a single drill, she was implying that the atmosphere itself had become unbearable, that one particular presence amplified the stress everyone was already under. And let's not forget, Brianna and Gia didn't coordinate these stories, they spoke separately, in different contexts, yet their accounts lined up. Both described a group that clicked beautifully, with one glaring exception. That kind of overlap is too sharp to ignore, even if they never stamped Kody's name on it directly. Now, picture Kody in those moments. On Sister Wives, his rants often landed with his wives sitting silently, swallowing their anger for the sake of the family. But in Morocco, the rules were different. These women weren't his wives, and these men weren't his followers. They were equals in the mud, equals on the obstacle course, and equals in the eyes of the drill staff. So when he tried to take the lead, or worse, when he tried to explain himself the way he might back home, it reportedly clashed head-on with people who had no intention of bowing to his authority. That's where getting under your skin starts to sound a lot more like open friction. And the real kicker? This all happened before the cameras even reached their most intense challenges. If the whispers are true, these weren't isolated hiccups. They were just the opening notes of a much louder symphony of tension still waiting to play out. Which begs the question, if early whispers already painted Kody as the odd man out, what happened once the challenges got harder, the nights got colder, and the patience of his castmates ran thin? That's when the presence of seasoned athletes and performers starts to matter. And Kody may have found himself outmatched in more ways than one. The contrast couldn't have been sharper. On one side, you had Randall Cobb, an NFL veteran who knows the grind of endless drills and the sting of being barked at by coaches. Johnny Manziel, another former pro, may have his controversies, but he's been through the ringer of high-pressure sports. Nick Young, an NBA champion, had weathered stadium crowds and locker room dynamics. Chanel Iman, a world-class model, built her career on discipline and poise under glaring spotlights. These weren't rookies to pressure. They'd lived it in different forms. On the other side, you had Kody Brown, whose claim to fame was corralling multiple wives under the banner of faith and reality TV, a world where his voice was rarely challenged. Suddenly, the uneven playing field was impossible to ignore. The athletes adapted quickly. They fell into line with the drill staff, even if it meant swallowing their pride. They understood instinctively that teamwork was survival, and the entertainers, from Gia Giudice to Jesse James Decker, knew the value of reading a room and picking their battles. Insiders whisper that while these cast members meshed surprisingly well despite the brutal conditions, Kody stood apart, his reactions jagged against the smoother rhythms of the group. Where others let the pressure roll off their backs, rumor has it he bristled, questioned, and sometimes flat-out resisted. And when you're the oldest man in the cast, as he was, that resistance doesn't read as rebellion, it reads as stubbornness. Imagine the optics. Younger competitors pushing through the mud with gritted teeth, nodding to every order, while Kody allegedly struggled to let go of his self-appointed authority. To his fans, he might look like a man standing firm, but to his castmates, sources claim it looked more like he was draining the team's energy at a time when every ounce of focus mattered. It was the kind of dynamic that doesn't just create friction, it creates a target. Once someone becomes the scapegoat in a group setting, every mistake, every sigh, every complaint lands heavier than it should. And if Gia and Brianna's hints are any indication, Kody found himself in that role very quickly. And this is where the reality show formula sharpens its teeth. Producers don't need to script a villain when someone naturally isolates themselves. All they have to do is keep the cameras rolling, and the audience will do the rest. The more the cast bonded without him, the more Kody's outsized reactions stood out. That's how narratives form, not from stage drama, but from real dynamics amplified by editing. And the irony is, Kody, who has long considered himself a celebrity in his own right, may have delivered exactly the kind of footage Fox craves without even realizing it. But here's the ripple effect. If Kody really did become the lone source of friction in Morocco, what does that mean for how he's perceived back home? On Sister Wives, he can explain away arguments as family stress. On Special Forces, there are no excuses, just raw behavior under pressure. And if the episodes confirm what Gia and Brianna hinted, it could shift his image from misunderstood patriarch to serial disruptor. Which leads us straight into the bigger question: how much will this spill back into his world with Robin, the tender-age kids, and the crumbling remnants of the Brown family brand? Because what happens in Morocco doesn't always stay in Morocco. And that's where the real stakes start to show. What happens in Morocco never really stays in Morocco, not when it's filmed, packaged, and broadcast to millions across Fox and Hulu. That's where the ripple effects get interesting, because Kody's stint on Special Forces isn't just a one-off adventure. It's another layer added to a public persona already under heavy scrutiny, thanks to Sister Wives. For over 15 years, TLC has painted him as the embattled patriarch trying, and often failing, to keep 4 marriages afloat. The fractures, the favoritism, the infamous knife in the kidneys rant, those moments are burned into the fan base. And now, stepping onto a new reality platform, he can't escape that baggage. If Gia and Brianna's hints are accurate, his Special Forces behavior may only reinforce the narrative fans have already built. Kody doesn't play well with others. Industry insiders whisper that producers love this overlap. Think about it. Fox gets a built-in storyline thanks to Kody's notoriety, while TLC gets fresh attention on their flagship series right as its momentum wavers. It's cross-network synergy, and it all hinges on Kody being exactly who fans expect him to be: loud, defiant, combustible. But for Kody himself, the stakes are higher. If the edit makes him look like the lone troublemaker, it could cement him as reality TV's perennial villain. And villains might draw ratings, but they don't always land sponsorships, book deals, or speaking gigs. Audiences might tune in for the drama, but that doesn't mean they'll pay to support him afterward. Then there's the ripple into his personal life. Robin has long insisted that Kody can't be away from their youngest kids for more than a couple of days. Yet here he was, halfway across the world, completely cut off from phone calls, allegedly stewing in conflict with strangers instead of helping with homework back in Flagstaff. Fans are already asking, how did Robin spin that to the kids? Did she frame it as daddy being a hero, braving the desert for television glory? Or did she quietly enjoy the break, as some speculate, using the time to shop online and pad her ever-growing doll collection without Kody hovering nearby? Rumor has it, Robin was just fine with him gone, as long as the paycheck cleared. And in the Sister Wives fandom, the chatter hasn't stopped. On Reddit, fans joke that Kody finally found a group even less impressed with him than his ex-wives. Others speculate that the Morocco footage could bleed back into TLC storylines, showing just how far Kody's desperation for relevance has gone now that Christine, Janelle, and Mary have stepped away from his orbit. Because if his performance on Special Forces mirrors the behavior we've seen in Flagstaff, it doesn't just prove the ex-wives right, it hands them more credibility than ever. But here's the cliffhanger. What if producers lean all the way in and give Kody the full nuclear edit? What if the very first episodes feature him clashing with castmates, pouting under pressure, or sparring with Gia Giudice? The online reaction could shift overnight, and not in his favor. And if that happens, the fallout won't stop at Fox. It could land right back in the living rooms of Sister Wives fans, reshaping how every past fight and every future storyline is interpreted. Which begs the question, when the premiere airs, will audiences see a misunderstood man under strain, or a repeat of the same Kody we've always known, just without the protection of a TLC confessional? Premiere night is when all the speculation either fizzles or detonates, and fans are already circling the date on their calendars. September 25 isn't just another Tuesday, it's the night we finally see if the rumors about Kody going nuclear on Special Forces actually made the cut. And here's what seasoned reality viewers know. The edit never lies, but it never tells the whole truth either. Producers don't have to invent drama. All they need to do is spotlight certain reactions, repeat a cutting look, or replay a tense exchange at just the right angle. If Kody really did clash with castmates the way Gia and Brianna hinted, expect the opening episodes to showcase it quickly. This isn't the kind of tension you save for mid-season. It's the kind of hook you front-load to grab viewers from the jump. So what are the tells? Watch the debrief scenes. That's where drill staff grill recruits about their performance, and it's where egos tend to crack wide open. If Kody's edit is leaning villainous, you'll see him questioned, perhaps talking back, maybe even rolling his eyes at authority figures who don't care that he once headlined a TLC show. Another red flag will be the group punishment sequences. When one person messes up, everyone pays. If Kody is featured as the spark for those punishments, it will frame him as the weak link in the unit, the one dragging the team down. And don't underestimate the cutaways. Reality TV thrives on reaction shots. If Gia shoots him a look, if Brianna sighs in frustration, if Teresa purses her lips mid-argument, producers will splice those seconds together to underscore the story. Rumor has it there's a sequence in which the cast must work in unison under brutal conditions, and insiders whisper that Kody's resistance to orders made it harder for everyone. Whether or not the show confirms that, fans will be watching every edit like hawks, searching for proof of the fights Gia so carefully alluded to on her podcast. The irony, of course, is that Kody might be hoping this gig revitalizes his reputation. He may see Special Forces as a chance to rebrand himself as tough, resilient, still relevant beyond the imploding world of Sister Wives. But if the first episodes show him as petulant, argumentative, or incapable of teamwork, that rebrand could collapse before it even begins. And once the memes start rolling, because they will, it's nearly impossible to claw your way back. Which leads to the biggest cliffhanger of all. When that first episode airs and the internet gets hold of the footage, will Kody Brown finally prove he can thrive outside the bubble of TLC, or will the Morocco experiment go down as the moment his reality TV legacy shifted from messy patriarch to full-blown reality villain? The answer might be decided not by what he actually did, but by what Fox chooses to show us. And that leaves only one final stretch to explore. What happens next, both for the man and for the franchise, once the dust settles and the edit locks in? Here's where the whole story comes full circle. Because once the footage is out, there are really only two ways this can play for Kody Brown. The first path is redemption, though slim, where viewers see him buckle under the weight of Morocco's drills, swallow his pride, and finally show a side that isn't all bluster. If the cameras catch him breaking down, admitting his limits, or even bonding unexpectedly with someone like Gia or Brianna after the dust settles, he could claw back a sliver of sympathy. Reality TV loves an arc, and audiences are surprisingly generous when someone who's known for arrogance lets their guard down. That would give him the chance to reframe himself, not as the stubborn patriarch of Sister Wives, but as a man who can evolve under fire. But the second path is far more likely if the whispers hold true. If the edit leans into every scowl, every complaint, every clash with the cast, then the nuclear label sticks. Kody becomes the troublemaker of the season, the guy who couldn't hang with athletes, couldn't mesh with entertainers, and couldn't stop himself from barking when silence would have served him better. In that version, Morocco won't look like bravery. It will look like another chapter in a long pattern of alienation. Fans of Sister Wives will point back to the arguments with Christine, the ultimatums with Janelle, the favoritism toward Robin, and say, see, it wasn't just family tension. This is who he is in any setting. And once that narrative hardens, it's hard to escape. Reality TV doesn't forget, and neither do its viewers. Insiders whisper that producers don't mind either way. Whether Kody redeems himself or doubles down, the drama is ratings gold. But for Kody, the fallout could shape his next decade. Will other shows invite him as a guest villain, the guy audiences love to hate? Or will the nuclear blast of this edit burn away whatever scraps of goodwill he still has left in the broader entertainment world? Robin might cheer the paycheck, but the long-term brand of Kody Brown could take a hit that even TLC can't soften. So here's the cliff we're left hanging on. When the dust of Morocco settles, will Kody emerge battered but changed? Or will he go down as the castmate everyone else united against? That's the story Gia Giudice primed us for when she hinted at those under-your-skin moments. And it's the story fans will tune in to watch unfold, whether to see a man break or to see a man exposed. And now, I'll leave it with you. Do you think Kody's time on Special Forces will show us a side of him we've never seen, or just confirm everything Sister Wives fans have been saying for years? And if the cast really did unite against him, was it his fault, or exactly what the producers wanted all along? Make sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more, because the next video on your screen is waiting. And trust me, you won't want to miss it.